Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixie Land. My name's Amy. I'm an ordained minister, and we are in Bible study. We are in the NIV, and we are in 1 Kings, and we're in chapter 7. Solomon builds his palace. As promised, Solomon is not quite done building. It took Solomon 13 years, however, to complete the construction of his palace. He built the palace of the forests of Lebanon, 100 cubits long, 50 wide, and 30 high. That's got a footnote on it of G. That is about 150 feet or 46 meters long, 75 feet or about 23 meters wide, and 45 feet or about 13.5 meters high. So one story. With 4 rows of cedar columns supporting trimmed cedar beams. It was roofed with cedar above the beams that rested on the columns, 45 beams, 15 to a row. Its windows were placed in sets of 3s facing each other. All the doorways had rectangular frames. They were in the front part. In sets of 3 facing each other. So this would mean that there's like a middle area of all the doors. There's like a hallway then if all the doors are facing each other. The meaning of the Hebrew for this is uncertain. I mean, it just means there's 2 sides to the house with a hallway because all the doors are facing each other. He made a colonnade 50 cubits long and 30 wide. That is about 75 feet or about 23 meters, and that would make sense because it's the width of the house, and about 45 feet or 13.5 meters wide. Okay, so that would be, matching with the height and width of the house. So it's not running on the length of the house, it's running on the width of the house. In front of it was a portico. So again, a portico just means it's like a covered sort of awning in the front, like in the emergency room area where the ambulance pulls up to, and it's got that whole bay out front that says emergency on the side. That is a portico. And in front of that were pillars and overhanging roof. Yeah, because porticos are usually covered. Most of the time when we see them, here in America, we tend to see them in the colonial style, so they're rounded porticos. He built the throne room, the hall of justice, where he was to judge, and he covered it with cedar from floor to ceiling. J. Vulgate and Syriac. So Vulgate's Latin, Syriac is Syrian. Hebrew, that's the floor. Okay. From floor to floor instead of from floor to ceiling. Okay. And the palace in which he was to live, set further back, was similar in design. Solomon also made a palace like this hall for the Pharaoh's daughter, whom he married. All these structures, from the outside to the great courtyard and from the foundation to the eaves, were made of blocks of high-grade stone cut to size and trimmed with a saw on their inner and outer faces. The foundations were laid with large stones of good quality, some measuring 10 cubits and some 8 cubits. And then we have 2 footnotes. A for the 10 cubits. That is about 15 feet or 4.5 meters. And that's the same also in verse 23. We're in verse 10 right now. And some with the 8 giving it B, that is 12 feet or 3.6 meters. Above were high-grade stones cut to size and cedar beams. The great courtyard was surrounded by a wall of 3 courses of dressed stone and 1 course of trimmed cedar beams, as was in the inner courtyard of the temple of the Lord with its portico. The temple's furnishings. King Solomon went to Tyre and bought Huram, Huram. It's got a footnote of C. In Hebrew, Hiram, is a variant of Huram, and that's the same in a couple other verses later, whose mother was a widow from the tribe of Naphtali, and whose father was a man of Tyre and a craftsman in bronze. Huram was highly skilled and experienced in all kinds of bronze work. He came to King Solomon and did all the work assigned to him. He cast 2 bronze pillars, each 18 cubits high and 12 cubits around. That is about 27 feet or about 8.1 meters high and 18 feet or 5.4 meters around byline. Okay, hold on. Let me reread that. He cast 2 bronze pillars about 18 cubits high and 12 cubits around byline. Byline. Okay. He was using like a string as measure, not necessarily a tape measure in the way we would think of it today. He also made 2 capitals of cast bronze to set on top of the pillars. Each capital was 5 cubits high. That is 7.5 feet or 2.3 meters. Yeah. We go. A network of interwoven chains festooned on the capitals on top of the pillars, 7 for each capital. He made pomegranates in 2 rows, encircling each network to decorate the capital on top of the pillars. And we have 2 footnotes there going F for 2 rows. 2 Hebrew manuscripts and the Septuagint, which is the Greek. Most Hebrew manuscripts made pillars, and there were 2 rows. And then for the pillars, with the footnote of G, many Hebrew manuscripts, and the Syriac, that's the Syrian, most Hebrew manuscripts, pomegranates. Okay. So 2 encircling each network to decorate the capitals on top of the pillars, or on top of the pomegranates. Okay. He did the same for each capital. The capitals on top of the pillars in the portico were in the shapes of lilies, 4 cubits high, footnote of H. That is 6 feet or 1.8 meters. On the capitals of both pillars, above the bowl-shaped part next to the network, were 200 pomegranates in rows all around. He erected the pillars at the portico of the temple. The pillar to the south he named Jakin, Jakin, that's F. 2 Hebrew manuscripts, and the Septuagint, that's the Greek. Most Hebrew manuscripts, he made the pillars, and they were 2 rows. Or am I looking at it in the wrong footnote? Yes, I am. Jakin probably means he establishes, okay? And the one to the north, Boaz. And that's got a footnote of J. There we go, Boaz. probably means in him is strength. Now, Boaz is one of Solomon's, great great grandfathers, because Jesse comes from Boaz, and it comes from that line, Boaz and Ruth. Jachin is actually somebody that Mother Mary also comes from. Okay, so we did some quick check. Jachin is not. Joachim is who Mother Mary is from. Jachin is very curiously from the tribe of Simeon. And we have no reason to, nobody knows. I went and looked. Okay, so why is there a column in Solomon's temple or Solomon's thing? We don't know. Some connection to Simeon, because that's the only name, besides here, the only time this name shows up in the Bible over and over again is in connection with the tribe of Simeon, one of the sons of Simeon. The capitals were in verse 22. The capitals on top were in the shape of lilies, and so the work on the pillars was completed. He made the C of cast metal, circular in shape, measuring 10 cubits. That's got a footnote of A. That is about 15 feet or 4.5 meters long, or 4.5 meters from rim to rim, and 5 cubits high. It took a line of 30 cubits to measure around it, and that's got a footnote of K. And that is about 45 feet or 13, so 45 feet or 13.5 meters. Below the rim, gourds encircled it, 10 to a cubit. The gourds were cast in 2 rows in one piece with the sea, and that's S-E-A, like the sea. Like the Sea of Galilee or something. The sea stood on 12 bulls, 3 facing north, 3 facing west, 3 facing south, and 3 facing east. The sea rested on top of them, and their hindquarters were towards the center. So the bull heads were facing outward. It was a handbreadth, so that's got a footnote of L. That is about 3 inches or 8 centimeters in thickness, and its rim was like the rim of a cup, like a lily blossom. It held 2,000 baths. That is about 11,500 gallons, or 44 kiloliters. The Septuagint, is the Greek, does not have the sentence about how big this bath was. He also made 10 movable stands of bronze. Each was 4 cubits long, 4 cubits wide, and 3 high. And that's got a footnote of N. So that is about 6 feet or 1.8 meters long and wide, and about 4.5 feet or 1.3 meters high. This is how the stands were made. They had side panels attached to uprights. On the panels between the uprights were lions, bulls, and cherubim. On the uprights as well. Okay. Above and below the lions and bulls were wreaths of hammered work. Each stand had 4 bronze wheels with bronze axles, and each had a basin resting on 4 supports, cast with wreaths on each side. On the inside of the stand, there was an opening that had a circular frame, 1 cubit deep. That's got a footnote of O. that is about 1.5 feet or 0.5 meters. This opening was round with its base work. It measured 1.5 cubits, which has a footnote of P. That is about 2.25 feet or 0.7 meters. Around its opening, there was an engraving. The panels of the stand were square, not round. The 4 wheels were under the panels, and the axles of the wheels were attached to the stand. The diameter of each wheel was 1.5 cubits. The wheels were made like chariot wheels. The axles, rims, spokes, and hubs were all cast in metal. So chariot wheels looking like a smaller, sort of sleeker version of what you'd expect on like a wagon wheel kind of situation. Each stand had 4 handles, one on each corner. Projecting from the stand at the top of the stand, there was a circular band 0.5 cubit deep. It's kind of footnote of Q. That is about 0.75 foot or 0.2 meters. The support and the panels were attached to the top of the stand. He engraved cherubim, lions, and palm trees on the surfaces of the supports and on the panels in every available space. With wreaths all around, this is the way he made the 10 stands. They were all cast in the same molds and were identical in size and shape, as they should be from the same molds. He then made 10 bronze basins, each holding 40 baths. Got a footnote of R, that is 230 gallons or 880 liters, and measuring 4 cubits across, 1 basin to go on each of the 10 stands. He placed 5 of the stands on the south side of the temple and 5 on the north. He placed the sea on the south side at the southeast corner of the temple. He also made the basins and shovels and sprinkling bowls. So Huram finished all the work he had undertaken for King Solomon in the temple of the Lord. The 2 pillars, the 2 bowl-shaped capitals on top of the pillars, the 2 sets of network decorating, the 2 bowl-shaped capitals on the top of the pillars, the 400 pomegranates for the 2 sets of network, 2 rows of pomegranates for each network, decorating the bowl-shaped capital on the top of the pillars, the 10 stands with their 10 basins, the sea and the 12 bowls under it, the pots, shovels, and sprinkling bowls. All these objects that Huram made for King Solomon for the temple of the Lord were in burnished bronze. The king had them cast in clay molds in the plain of the Jordan between Sukkoth and Zarethan, Zarethan. Solomon left all these things unweighed because they were so many. The weight of the bronze was not determined. Solomon also made all the furnishings that were in the Lord's temple: the gold altar, the gold table on which the bread of the presence, the lampstands of pure gold, 5 on the right and 5 on the left, in the front of the inner sanctuary, the gold floral work and the lamps and tongs, the pure gold basins, wick trimmers, sprinkling bowls, dishes, and censers, and the gold sockets for the doors of the innermost room, the most holy place, and also the doors of the main hall of the temple. Now, most of those things are pretty most people can understand what they are, but a censer. And so again, this is a censer. This is made of brass, not, bronze, or certainly not gold. When all of the work King Solomon had done for the temple of the Lord was finished, he brought the things his father David had dedicated, the silver and gold and the furnishings, and he placed them in the treasury of the Lord's temple. I know. It was a long one, and it's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of bronze, right? And a lot of cedar, and some very specific, very detailed, written out. Like for me, this would be a blueprint, because that's what my brain was doing. Was because that's what I do, or what I have done for a very, very, very long time, is work on the design end of construction. So making blueprints. My brain started visualizing what it is that they were constructing. I hope it was helpful. So until the next video, friends,